Documentation is an essential part of providing professional care. As a care partner with Agnes and Sandy's caring hands, your responsibilities do not end when you complete a task for a client. You must also accurately document the care and services you provided. Your documentation helps communicate what happened during your shift, identifies changes in the client's condition, and creates an official record of the services provided. Throughout this lesson, we will discuss what should be documented, how documentation should be written, and common mistakes that care partners must avoid. Documentation serves several important purposes. First, it helps protect the client. Other members of the care team may rely on your notes to understand what occurred during your shift. Second, documentation helps maintain continuity of care. The next care partner, supervisor, nurse, or other authorized member of the care team may need information about the client's condition, behavior, activities, or concerns. Documentation may also verify that scheduled services were actually provided. Most importantly, your notes create a record of what occurred. If something important happened but was never documented or reported, there may be no reliable record showing that you observed it or responded appropriately. Your documentation should accurately reflect the services you provided during your shift. For example, if you assisted the client with bathing, grooming, toileting, meal preparation, mobility, or another assigned task, that care should be documented according to agency procedures. You should also document significant observations. This could include a change in the client's behavior, mobility, appetite, skin condition, mental status, or ability to perform normal activities. Remember that care partners should document within their role and scope of responsibility. Do not diagnose medical conditions or make clinical conclusions that you are not qualified to make. Document what you actually observed. One of the most important rules of documentation is to remain objective. Objective documentation focuses on facts that you personally observed, heard, or experienced. Avoid labels, insults, assumptions, exaggerations, or personal opinions. For example, writing that a client was acting crazy is inappropriate and does not explain what actually happened. Instead, describe the behavior. You might document that the client repeatedly attempted to leave the home and stated that they needed to go to work. That gives the care team useful information without making an inappropriate judgment about the client. Avoid vague documentation whenever more specific information is available. Statements such as client did fine, client ate good, or client wasn't feeling well provide very little useful information. Describe what actually occurred. If you know approximately how much of a meal the client consumed, document it. If the client needed more assistance than usual when walking, describe the assistance provided and report significant changes according to agency procedures. Specific documentation gives supervisors and other authorized members of the care team a clearer understanding of the client's condition and the care provided. Clients have rights, including the right to refuse care. If a client refuses an assigned service, do not argue with them or physically force them to participate. Instead, remain respectful. When appropriate, explain the purpose of the care and offer assistance again. If the client continues to refuse, document exactly what occurred and follow agency procedures for notifying your supervisor. Your documentation should clearly show what service was offered, that the client declined, what actions you took, and whether the supervisor was notified. This is an example of appropriate documentation. Notice that the note does not criticize the client. It does not say the client was difficult, stubborn, uncooperative, or disrespectful. Instead, it explains exactly what happened. The scheduled shower was offered, the client declined, the care partner offered assistance and respected the client's decision. The supervisor was notified. That is objective documentation. Care partners often spend significant amounts of time with clients and may notice changes before anyone else does. You are not responsible for diagnosing the cause of those changes. You are responsible for recognizing what you observe, responding appropriately within your role, and reporting significant concerns. For example, if a client who normally walks independently suddenly requires assistance, that change may need to be reported. Document what you observed rather than attempting to diagnose why it happened. When a client makes an important statement, documenting their actual words can be extremely valuable. For example, if the client says, "My chest hurts," document that statement and immediately follow applicable emergency and reporting procedures. Do not change the client's statement into your own medical conclusion. A care partner should not write that the client probably has indigestion, anxiety, pneumonia, or another condition unless that information has been appropriately established and is relevant to the documentation. Your job is to accurately report what you observed and what the client told you. Falsifying documentation is a serious matter. Never document that you completed a service when you did not. Never record a task before performing it simply because you expect to complete it later. Never change clock in or clock out information to make it appear that you worked hours you did not work. And never sign another employee's name or ask another employee to document something falsely on your behalf. If you make a mistake, follow agency procedures for correcting the record. Do not attempt to hide the mistake. Everyone can make a documentation mistake. What matters is how that mistake is corrected. Do not attempt to secretly alter records or replace information with something you know is inaccurate. Electronic systems may maintain records showing when entries were created or modified. Follow Agnes and Sandy's Caring Hands procedures for correcting documentation. If you are unsure how to correct an entry, contact your supervisor before making the correction. Documentation should be completed as close to the time of service as agency procedures allow. Waiting too long increases the possibility that important details will be forgotten. Never rely on memory several days later to recreate an entire shift. Complete required documentation during or immediately following your shift according to agency procedures. Client documentation contains confidential information. Only individuals authorized to access the client's information should have access to those records. Do not photograph care notes for personal use. Do not send client information through unauthorized communication methods. Never discuss client information on social media or with friends, family members, or other individuals who are not authorized to receive that information. Follow agency HIPAA and confidentiality policies at all times. Consider this scenario. You prepare lunch for a client who normally eats most of their meal. Today, the client takes only 2 bites, pushes the plate away, and says, "I'm not hungry." What should you document? You should document the observable facts. For example, you could document that lunch was prepared, the client consumed approximately 2 bites, pushed the plate away, and stated, "I'm not hungry." Because this represents a potential change from the client's normal eating pattern, you should also follow agency procedures for reporting significant changes. Care documentation is a professional record. Personal frustration should never appear in a client's care notes. Even when a client is upset, demanding, confused, or refusing care, your documentation should remain respectful and objective. Describe behaviors instead of labeling the person. Remember that documentation may be reviewed by supervisors, healthcare professionals, regulators, legal representatives, or others who are authorized to review the record. Write every note professionally. Before submitting your documentation, take a moment to review it. Make sure the information is accurate and complete. Check that you documented significant observations or changes. Make sure you used professional language and avoided assumptions or personal opinions. Most importantly, make sure everything you documented is truthful. A care note should allow another authorized person reviewing the record to understand what occurred during your shift. Professional documentation is part of professional caregiving. Your notes help communicate important information, support continuity of care, and create a record of the services provided. Document what you actually observed. Report significant changes or concerns promptly. Never falsify records. Protect client confidentiality. And remember, observe it, report it, and document it. Accurate documentation protects the client and supports the entire care team.